If you had lived their childhood, grown up where they did, experienced what they experienced, would you really be any different? Or do we just like to believe we're in control? Nature or nurture? You decide. Let's start with a man history remembers as pure brutality. Vlad the Impaler. As a child, Vlad was taken hostage by the Ottoman Empire. He watched executions. He lived under constant threat of torture and death. By the time he returned home, violence wasn't shocking. It was normal. As ruler, Vlad impaled thousands of people. Not in secret, but publicly. He believed fear was the only way to maintain order. So here's the question. Was Vlad born cruel? Or did years of captivity teach him that mercy was weakness? Vlad's violence was rewarded by his world. Cruelty wasn't hidden. It was celebrated. But what happens when violence isn't applauded? When it's absorbed quietly, alone, and twisted inward? John Wayne Gacy wasn't raised in chaos. He had a home, a family, a job. But growing up, he was constantly humiliated by his father. Called weak, called worthless. Gacy learned early that approval came from pretending. As an adult, he became a businessman, a community volunteer, a man people trusted, behind that mask. He murdered at least 33 young men. So ask yourself this: was Gacy born broken, or did years of shame teach him to split himself in two? Gacy shows us what happens when a person splits themselves in two: a public mask and a private darkness. But what happens when that darkness isn't hidden in one person, when it's written into an ideology and shared by a nation? Pol Pot wasn't born a tyrant. He was soft-spoken, well-educated. He studied in Paris, but he grew up in a country shaped by colonialism, war, and humiliation. He became obsessed with the idea that society itself was corrupt. In his mind, cities were evil. Education was dangerous. Only a pure rural society could survive. When he came to power, that belief turned lethal. Anyone who didn't fit his vision, intellectuals, professionals, even people who wore glasses, were eliminated. Was this cruelty something inside him, or the result of ideology, power, and a country pushed to breaking point? What if suffering doesn't create cruelty, but restraint? Pol Pot believed suffering was necessary, that pain could be engineered for a greater good. But history gives us another response to suffering, one that doesn't multiply it, but restrains it. Abraham Lincoln grew up in extreme poverty. His mother died when he was 9. He had little formal education. He battled deep depression for much of his life. By modern standards, he would likely have been diagnosed. And yet he rose during one of the most divided moments in American history: Civil War, slavery, national collapse. With absolute pressure and enormous power, he chose restraint, empathy, and unity over revenge. Same world that creates tyrants, same trauma that breaks others. So how do we explain this difference? Sigmund Freud believed that much of human behavior isn't chosen consciously at all. According to Freud, our actions are shaped by forces beneath awareness, childhood experiences, unresolved trauma, suppressed emotions. In his view, the first years of life don't just influence who we become. They structure us. The same suffering that fuels violence in one person can fuel restraint in another, depending on how it's processed, internalized, and reinforced. But Freud didn't argue that we're prisoners. He believed awareness creates choice, that once we understand what shaped us, we gain the ability to respond differently, which means evil isn't simply born, and goodness isn't accidental. So if our past shapes us, but doesn't fully control us, what truly shapes how we behave? Is it nature or nurture? If awareness gives us choice, if understanding our past gives us the ability to respond differently, then we're not completely powerless either. Some people inherit violence and pass it on, others inherit suffering and end it. If you had lived their childhood, grown up where they did, experienced what they experienced, would you really be any different? Nature or nurture? You decide. If you enjoy this type of content, then why not subscribe to the channel? We post one short each and every day. We will also be posting longer format videos like this one, at least once per week. So subscribe to stay connected. So until next time, thank you for watching and supporting our channel.